Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Leadership Lessons with Cheri. This week, I am excited to talk about one of my most favorite pieces of information when it comes to leadership ever. I know I've shared this with you before, and I don't know how it happened, but once I got into the principal position, I got basically known to be the turnaround principal. I went into my very first school, which was a very large elementary that was struggling. And I came in as the assistant principal. Things actually got so much worse that year. So when I took over the following year, we had to go through a turnaround and get everything back on track. And it was hard work, but it was very rewarding work. So when I got my second position up in Des Moines, Iowa, they actually placed me in a school that was going through a similar situation. I was at that school for 2 years. We saw some amazing growth. And I came back to Houston and I actually got offered two positions. And one of them was one that I had applied for, but actually applied for something different. And they contacted me about this position specifically because my first superintendent as a principal recommended me to this district to come in and fix their school. So I had a reputation for being able to come in, look at systems, processes, and procedures, and be able to figure out what was needing to be adjusted. I got very good at making change within organizations because I understood how people fight change. I understood what gets people motivated to change, and I understood the change process enough to know where you make your focus right at first to have your biggest lever. And yeah, so I loved it. I mean, I just loved that work. And I have to say, it taught me so much about so many things. And then going into building a business, I always say if I go back into a principal position, I'll know so much more because now I have the principal mind, the teacher mind, and now the business owner mind as well. Sorry, I have something that keeps brushing my eye. You know how that goes. Anyway, and I looked at the calendar today and whoa, I was shocked. Even though I know the calendar, right? I know the date every single day. I keep track. I have a calendar in my office with quotes. I have a weekly calendar in my office that I make to do project lists and keep up with all of that. I have calendars at school. I have days at school. It's the last day of school a couple weeks ago. I know all of those things. But sometimes I think we just go in that automatic mode when it comes to things like that. And it hit me hard that we're wrapping up month 5 of 2025. And as you're listening to this, it's the first week of June. This is the 6th month. So I'm going to speak today about experience and work that I've had in schools as a leader. However, if you're in a business outside of public education, and you're starting to feel like, whoa, it's halfway through the year and I'm not sure where I'm at on things, this information is going to be just as valuable for you. And today I want to give just a brief overview of work that I did when it came to really digging into the data, doing that analysis, and then determining what my next steps are. Because let's just face it, I'm here in Houston. Teachers, school leaders, district leaders, our test scores just got released, right? Preliminary scores are released. I'm hearing everything all over social media. We've started looking at information. I haven't seen all of the information for my school. I'm just not the principal, so I don't get privy to that immediately. But I have seen data for my own program. And yeah, it's time. It's time to look at that and decide what was working and what wasn't working and make some plans, right? And this is also that time of year for a school leader that you're wrapping up the previous year and you're preparing for what's coming next for next year. This is the summer work that we do as school leaders. And if you're a business owner or running an organization outside of education, it's halftime. It's halftime in the year, and you're probably making some adjustments in the work that you do as well. So, having said that, I can tell you when I first went into this turnaround principal role, I kind of didn't know what I was doing formally, But I knew how to look at my students' progress as a classroom teacher or the teachers I mentored as an instructional specialist and be able to say, okay, this worked, this didn't work. Why did it work? Why did it not work? And I got really good at looking at student assessment data in a way that was different than a lot of people looked at it. When my students took their assessments, it didn't matter if it was a formal state assessment or if it was a more informal classroom assessment that I had designed or our school had designed. I followed the same procedure religiously because I needed to know exactly what was tripping up my students. So number one, even though I had sometimes designed the tests, I always stepped back, took the time, and worked through the problems. And when I worked through the problems, let's just take a math test in particular, I actually worked how many different ways could I solve this problem? And then when I went and looked at the actual test design itself, I went through every answer choice that was provided, if an answer choice was provided, and I said, why would kids choose this answer, even though it would be wrong? And what makes this answer correct? If it was an open-ended question, I did the same kind of process, only I had to think a little different. I had to think, where would my students get tripped up and how would they respond to this ineffectively? And I did all of that before I looked at any of my data. And then I graded my student work. And even though we got to a place eventually that we were putting this through a computer, of course, computer generated reports back when I was in a classroom were so simple as compared to what they are now. But I still feel like, and this was something that I encouraged all of my teachers to do as well, even when the reports got better, look at your data yourself and really look at why did this kid go wrong or why did this kid go right? That's profound. Now let's fast forward to me becoming a principal. When I walked into these schools, I had to do a very similar process. The first thing I had to do is I had to sit down and say, what is happening here? What is working? What is not working? And what could be some reasons for this not to be working? Before I actually got into the weeds of every piece of data. Then I was able to pull in other people to help me review these exact things. These things are working. Okay, as a team, let's determine why they're working. I already had my preliminary thoughts, but now I wanted to hear from the people in the trenches because I hadn't been there. When I took over these schools, I was coming in as the brand new person. I needed their input. I needed to be able to push them to get as deep as possible. And we did the same thing for what was not working. And we took it to such a deep level where we were able to get rid of all of the things that we didn't have power and control over. Focus on the things that we could actually make change for. Really determine the root cause of anything going right and anything going wrong. And then we were able to use that data to design what we were going to do next. And once we were able to sit down and say, okay, now we know what we need to do. What are going to be the one or two things, maybe three things we're going to stay focused on this year that's going to have the biggest impact for our future? Because if we focus on 12, we're going to stay at the surface. But if we focus on two or three, we're going to be able to go deep. And we're actually going to be able to make lasting impact. I don't know if you've ever heard me say this, and you probably haven't here on the podcast, but maybe if you listen and you've worked with me or you've had time with me, I often say I'm really good at interventions as well. When it comes to student learning, when it comes to interventions for teachers, when it comes to interventions for people I mentor. But sometimes I feel like interventions can look like Band-Aids. We're stopping the bleed. Oh no, this is wrong. We got to fix this. Let's stop the bleeding. Let's just get past what we need to get past. But until we really get to that deep level, we're never going to really find out why we were bleeding in the first place. And those are the things we have to fix if we're going to have future sustainability. And that's how you determine those big ticket items. We can't just slap a Band-Aid on something and expect it to turn around. We can't focus on 12 things and expect them all to be perfect or as close to perfection as we can get as humans, right? And then we have to hold ourselves accountable for actually implementing the plan we put into place. That means we have to communicate it out. We have to get people on board with us. We have to be able to have specific milestones that we're measuring. We have to be able to keep moving forward when things are hard. And if we have to make adjustments, we have a specific criteria for how we adjust. Not just, this didn't work this week, so we're going to scrap it. You put those kinds of systems in order and you keep going. And you find those small wins to motivate your people. Now, it's this time of year, as I mentioned, that we've got test data, and if you're a school leader, and if you don't yet, maybe you're not in Texas and yours comes in a little bit, you're going to be looking at that to get ready to start a new school year. And the time is now to get started on what your plans are. If you're in a different type of organization, it's mid-year, halftime, it's time to make adjustments if something is not working. So to wrap all of this up, in a nutshell, my process, go in by yourself, look at what is working, what is not working, and why would these things be working and why would they not be working in general. Then pull your team in, get their input. That doesn't mean everybody on your team. It means your leadership team, your people that you truly trust to be able to not just agree with you, push back, that are able to really dig into this and not feel some kind of personal attack about it, and really look at what worked, what didn't work, specifically now for your organization. Why did it work? Why did it not work? And what are the things you have power and control over? And then sit down and pick out those few things, 2 to 3, no more than 3, that you can go deep on, that are going to have the highest leverage to bring your organization to its highest level. Now, maybe your organization, maybe your data looks great. There's always room for improvement. And we also need to have a plan so that we can sustain that greatness. So this process works no matter what kind of outcome you have, as long as you then commit to implementing your plan and holding everybody accountable. Everybody, including school leaders, the janitor, including the school secretary, and including the cafeteria people, because real change, systemic change, includes every single body in that building. All right, y'all. It's time. It's time to pull the bootstraps up, get going on planning for the upcoming school year or planning for the second half of this year. This is my expertise, my forte. Reach out if you need any kind of help. I have ways to help you, but good luck with all you do. Take this process. If you just use this, you can actually get started. I promise. You're smart people out there. All right. Have a great one, and I'll see y'all next week right back here on Leadership Lessons with Cheri.